Trident Wargaming. Build it, paint it, play it. Hey everybody, and we are back here at Trident Wargaming with another episode of some bolt action for this podcast. And making his return to the podcast is my super awesome battle buddy, Mr. Jason. How the hell are you?
I'm doing all right.
Very good, very good. I gave him a break. It was last probably month and a half or so. Hasn't been on the podcast for a bit, actually. So I'm sure he got a lot of painting done. But,
Womp womp.
Yeah. So yeah, right back into it. Full steam ahead. Good old bolt action episode. We are going to be deep diving into the Armies of Great Britain. Their main book is what we're going to be going through. Kind of deep dive into that, go through some units. It might be a two-parter, depends how long this is. So, we're going to just kind of go through the units, give you guys a little bit more of detailed like info and kind of tactics and whatnot that we've come up with, experienced, and even kind of just observed and seen just with the rules that are in their book and the units that they have in their book. So this will be a fun little segment. I believe we will have probably doing this all year long, so we'll have lots of this coming. Hopefully you guys will enjoy it, and please let us know, of course, down in the comments somewhere down there. But first and always, the hobby front. So, what is on your workbench, Jason?
Well, sir, we have the slow grow coming up, so I thought my son Elias and I are in it, and he's building up his airborne, and so I thought I'd start a new army. So I'm doing Canadians landing on Juno Beach, Canadian Scottish Regiment.
Nice.
So they might look stupid. My concept is so they're kind of coming out of the water. I don't know.
That's right. You were saying that to me in the last
I got most of them built, and they look okay, but they might look stupid if they're not on a beach board. It might just look like they're stuck in the mud. I don't know.
Are those zombies? Are you raising the dead? Wrong game, Jason. Wrong game. So
hopefully it works out anyway.
Yeah, you need to send me some pictures.
Yeah,
so I can share that with people as well. I think that's a cool idea, a unique idea. I think I actually may have came across somebody doing that similar just on the weekend. So it'd be good to see what you do, because I mean you have some pretty good ideas and stuff for miniatures and terrain and all that jazz. So I'm sure you'll come up with something.
Hopefully. I think the selling will come in the form of the basing. If I can get the basing right, if I can get the water effect or whatever, if I can make that work well, I think it will look okay.
Nice.
Sweet. So that's it.
That's on your plate. Very good. Very good. We've actually had a lot of people jumping into the slow grow. I think I'm sitting at 13 people right now.
Sweet.
And there's one gentleman from out of town, so he's joining in. He'll come out to games when he can, and then he's joining in on the painting part of it. So that'll be awesome. And yeah, it's good to see a lot of new blood kind of coming in and joining in, plus all the veterans joining in as well. So it'll be fun. It'll be good to teach players. And just with the attendance on the drop-in nights, it's been pretty good lately. So I'm very, very pleased with it.
Lots of new guys.
Yeah, unannounced and everything. Just like, oh, here's some new bolt action players. Let me just make my way down and introduce myself. So it's pretty cool. Speaking of the hobby front for myself, it's continuing painting the DAC army for the Germans. And I've actually gotten a fair bit of progress on it. I think I have half of my infantry are actually done.
Excellent.
Plus my MMG team, plus my mortar team, commander, air observer, and almost the whole crew for the 88 that I have built and whatnot. So, and essentially, the rest of the infantry I had actually brought out to game night, but we were odd, so I sat out as usual because like I'm the sergeant and stuff. But I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to start bringing some stuff, bring some paints, and I'm just going to do some hobby.
Yeah.
Right. So like I'm answering questions, I'm hanging out with people. I might as well grab a brush, start painting my stuff as I'm talking with people. Right. And like I spent like almost the whole night there talking with Max just about the game and whatnot. So it was great. Got a lot done. Brought the stuff home, put it back on the bench, and was like, that's all my green. It's all done.
Sweet.
That's all my helmet color. That's all done. Right.
Nice.
So yeah, that's where I'm at. Mind you, going through this book, I think that's probably going to be one of the next armies I do.
Excellent.
So there's a lot of good stuff in this book, and we're going to jump into that. So, but yeah, going ahead, we'll be doing the hobby thing all the time. I do have a video that I still have to complete for how I do my paint job for my DAC army. So you'll see that shortly, probably in the next maybe week or so here. I'll do that for the infantry, the colors I used, all that stuff. And then I'm also going to do how I would paint like my Panzer III and then also the 88 as well. So a couple of videos. We're doing more hobby stuff like that on YouTube.
Nice.
Right. So, and then more tactical stuff kind of on the podcast. So incorporate both in different ways, right?
Then I'm going to throw down a unsolicited challenge here, sir.
Ooh.
How close are you? What is your count for your DAC? Is it close to 1,200 or what are you going for? 1,000?
So right now it's at 1,000. But I can easily add the other 250, right? So it's probably going to be more, right?
Well, here's the challenge then. Sometime in this next month or so, month and a half maybe.
Yep.
Let's get together and do Maori versus DAC at my place on the a big old desert table.
You're
a giant Stalingrad-sized table.
Okay. Yeah.
And we can desert it up with a big old fist fight.
Yeah, no, for sure. You're down.
Let's do it. We'll throw it out to the old either videos or photos for the at-home Trident crew.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. That'd be good. Let me get some good photos and good fights with that too. Yeah. Good idea.
Let's do it.
We'll pick a weekend and we'll just have some good times rolling dice. So
I'm sold.
It's been a while, right? So
yeah, it's been a while since he hosted a thing here. My table just if it doesn't get used for gaming, it just collects all of the like every time I go out for the to the store to play or something, I toss my army on top, and so I need to use it or lose it.
No, I hear you. We will definitely use it.
Sold.
Yeah. So getting to essentially the meat and potatoes of the episode.
This old British book you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the meat and potatoes. And you're
That
thinking
is-
of getting into it. And I have a Canadian army, which is basically, I mean, really, it's a British army that is called Canadian Army.
Yeah.
Rules wise. Although, because it's old, it was that army that I built was my first bolt action army. Was my Canadian Scottish in those universal carriers.
The carriers, yeah.
But then I've later since adapted the Canadian special rules once those came in. But originally it was strictly out of this book. And then the British Airborne is another army. And then fairly recently the Maori. But really, it's out of the Western Desert book, but pretty much, besides the Maori themselves rules, they're pretty much strictly out of this book also. So it's a pretty solid book with lots of range. Just for a quick, idea of it off the hop. It's really like the German book is probably the most versatile.
Yeah.
There's lots of stuff in the US book and lots of stuff in the Soviet book, but I feel that the British book and the German book are the two most versatile. You can do really just almost any type of army you can conceive of. Any style of play that you prefer, you can bring it to bear.
Nice. So yeah, like specifically, I mean, with a lot of the rules, like the nation rule characteristics, those are a big thing, right? So, and we'll go through that here. But essentially, right off the bat, like as you are looking into the Army of Great Britain, their specific army rules. One of them is the prep bombardment.
The one that everybody forgets about, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I was reading
about it.
You forget about it. I was reading it, and I was like, I don't remember anybody actually doing this against me. So now I remember
1 out of 10.
Now that I've really gone through it, it'll be one of those points where, hey, remember?
So essentially you get 2 dice when you're rolling prep bombardment per unit, and you pick the best result.
Yeah, which is pretty big.
Pretty big, yeah. It can really shut down the enemy army for that first turn.
Yeah, exactly.
Which can be a huge handicap, especially if you're shutting down some heavy hitters or whatever. You get a tank at X amount of points, 300, 400 points, and it has to spend a whole turn rallying, basically, before it can even do anything.
Yep.
That can be huge.
Rally, getting it knocked out. We've had that happen so many times, right?
People forget. I forget. Oh, man.
I'll make sure you don't forget next time. So
you better. And then I guess the second rule, really, that's the old, grinds my gears kind of rule that everybody has.
We had this on another episode about people. Jason popped off on this one a little bit, so we won't repeat that again. No, but yeah, this was they get a free regular arty observer, so that's like 100 points or so, for free, and it doesn't count toward the limit of observers that they can have. So it's a free unit. There's other armies that have free units. It's I think it's good. I mean, people are going to say, "Oh, it's too OP or it's overpowered." They get a 100-point unit for free that can drop a pie plate down or whatever. Okay, but that happens once. That's it. And then,
if you think about it, the French get a free artillery piece.
Wow, that's just it.
Can drop a pie plate every turn.
Yeah,
if they wanted,
they can get that, so they can get free artillery or a free anti-tank.
Yeah,
which they don't have very much of that are like mediums, or there's also the secondary
free squad.
There's also the secondary free thing for the French is if you go in inexperienced, 3 inexperienced units, you'll get a 4th for free. So you get 2 units for free essentially if you go that route. But that's the French. So, but
the thing. Sorry, I cut you off there, pal.
No. I was just going to say that's the French, and like the British have their own thing, right? So, but you're going to say
the thing about this rule or this character army special rule is it doesn't really give you access to anything that any other army can have. Like,
right,
almost any army can have an artillery observer.
Yep.
So really, it's just you're saving 100 points. And really, the more and more I play, arty observers are generally worth 100 points, but not often worth more than 100 points. You know what I mean? They on some games they murder, and a lot of games they do a couple of pins.
Yeah,
that's the reality. But of course, people remember the games that, like, oh god, it hit my Tiger tank and it blew it to smithereens, and I hate that free artillery observer. But
it's part of the game. Like it's
not that big. Sometimes it hits big. Most of the times it doesn't.
But you got to think of that, and I mean, we're not going to spend a huge amount of time on it, but you got to think, is that better than the Germans with their Hitler's buzzsaw? I don't think so. In my opinion, I don't think so, because the amount of light machine guns and MMGs that you have access to, and you're getting that many extra shots,
significantly better, and anybody has access to the exact same unit
for sure.
They just have to pay 100 points.
It's just,
but I have no access. Unless you're a German, you have no access to a tank that causes Tiger Fear, or no access to a LMG that gets the extra shot, or MMG that gets the extra shot.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying, by the way, that either of those rules are overpowered at all either. It's just, sometimes this rule gets picked on a bit. I don't think it's that powerful. It's good. I'm certainly glad to have it. But I've also faced it, and it's good, but it's not a game breaker that some people make it.
It's not the end all be all. Yeah, it's just those moments where people have it hits. It hits. What can you do, right?
To be fair, sometimes it does. It does ruin a guy's day.
Oh, for sure. But going forward, now we have, and this is probably going to be a big section here, is the national characteristics that the British armies can have. So there's a list of rules that they get, and a lot of them are actually really, really good. And there's very far and few that, aren't that great, right? So we'll start out from the top, I guess.
Just basically, quickly, there's 6 of them, and you get to pick one. And I really like the idea behind it, because it allows you to add flavor to kind of the generic list. without anything too crazy. It's basically a very small paragraph, very small rule, adds a little bit of a buff, and we'll go through them, but it allows you to add flavor to represent, how vast and, not vast as in huge. The British Army wasn't that huge, and even with all the colonial powers, not that huge compared to your other European powers, but how vast as in diverse, I guess, especially when you start considering, colonial troops and troops from other Commonwealth nations, and so it allows you to add a little flavor.
They're trying to resemble, those different portions of the army and the countries that were all involved, right? So which is really good. I like it. I think it's pretty cool. One thing I will say about them is, like I said to you before, was that these characteristics really push you to being regular veteran. Right. Yeah. So I think you'll see majority of Brit armies as that. Right. So, going through these characteristics, they are literally saying that vets or regs can have this except inexperience, even if it's a green rule that changes them up to, to regular. So, but the first one is the Up and Atom. And essentially, it's an auto pass on assaults, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. You could really combo some of that like this with some specific units in this book. It's great against tanks, if that's your goal, is to be able to actually assault tanks.
Yeah, because then, if you think about it, if you auto-pass assaults, you don't really need anti-tank grenades.
No.
Because what do you care if you have a -3 to a test you're never going to have to take?
Yeah.
Right?
So, that's I remember you mentioned that to me before, and then we came up with that and kind of thought about that kind of thing at one point, and we're like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. But
which, by the way, anti-tank grenades are 3 points a model.
Yep.
So that can be, you're pushing 30 models, 40 models. That's significant
point saved.
Point saved for a free rule, really.
Exactly. So it's really good for that. Like if you got veterans that are equipped with either SMGs that give them Tough Fighter, or maybe they already have Tough Fighter. You also have the Scary Blighters, which we'll go into later as well. You'll probably hear me say that a lot. This being an auto pass that you're in, doesn't matter. You're in. That's a big effect.
Oh yeah,
really big effect, because now you're utilizing that rule to get your scary close quarter units in combat, right? So, essentially, that's what that one is.
Yeah, pretty basic idea, but could be really effective. And really, I mean, if you think about it, when you're making your list, it could save you quite a bit of points, which would again allow you to slip in more troops if you're thinking about it, or more guns.
Yep, exactly. The
next one I've used, and I kind of like it actually. Blood Curdling Charge.
Yep.
Because on the assault, they're not allowed a shooting response, shooting reaction. Yeah.
Yep.
Which, I mean, it's not the best one, but I do like it for those situations where, I mean, you do want to assault a guy. Quite often, you're not going to be within the 6. It's not that common that you're within that range when you're doing that assault.
Right.
So you're going to have to suffer that, or you risk suffering that shot unless you time it after their dice is pulled. So it can be it can be quite handy. It can eliminate the possibility of them pulling, attacks from you, that you would normally give. I mean, honestly, they're probably not going to stop the assault, even though that's a thing that could happen. But it's pretty unlikely that you're going to have that happen to you from them causing enough damage. But the reality is that they're probably fairly likely to kill a guy or two, which is taking out of your dice pool when you're doing your assault, when you're fighting the combat. So it's not bad, especially for those armies where you're really expecting the combat to go off.
So again, this rule itself allows, like, it gives you the opportunity for those longer charges that you're you're like, well, he's going to be able to shoot me up, and I'm out in the open, so I'm going to get wrecked. Not going to happen now, right?
Yeah, and I could probably count on one hand how many times I've had that charge where I'm within 6 inches.
Yeah.
Out of all the games I've ever played, it doesn't happen very often. Usually, honestly, you're pushing it where you may not be in range. You're at the 11, 12 inch mark.
Yeah.
When you're making those decisions. So
there's that with that. And then also, I just reread the rule, and it doesn't say anything about, like, it can't be used against tanks.
Yeah, oh yeah, you can. Yeah, you assault a tank, and their machine guns aren't.
Yeah, which can be really effective, right? Against the tank, that can be really effective because, like, there are some tanks that have like 3 MMGs on them.
Oh yeah, and that assault against them is just not worth it unless you time it till you got to wait till they go pull their dice out already. But then are you close enough to, it gives them a time to react. They can move away from you, or even also on the assault. Of course, if that tank moves, it gets that much harder to do the hit, right? If they do a advance move, then you need 6s instead of 4s.
Yeah.
So probably you're assaulting them when they still have their dice in the bag, just so you can even cause the damage you're hoping to. So you're going to risk those machine gun shots. So yeah, it can be really good against those.
Definitely. Next one, I think, is probably one of my favorites, is the Toughest Boots. Again, it's all regular veteran units. You'll get this bonus. So essentially, for every 3 men that you have, you get 1 extra attack in close combat. So one with this is, I would definitely be looking at trying to take full man squads, like full strength.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the other thing it promotes. You were saying it promotes people taking regular and veteran. It also promotes full squads.
Yeah. So there's that. There's the full squad thing that I would be looking at. If you give this, if you give this to your army and you have units with tough fighters in it, you're getting 3 attacks. So let's say it's a 10-man squad, right? You'll get 3 extra attacks. And in the rule, it's saying that you pretty much give it to whichever model will attack, right? So if you guys have guys with tough fighters, if the whole unit has tough fighters, cool. If you have 3 guys with SMGs that are tough fighters in that unit, you give those guys those attacks to give them a better chance to utilize their tough fighter rule, right? So that's that one. And then on top of that as well is the scary blighters. So the scary blighters and the tough fighters is a little bit of a combo, because like you're actually reducing the opponent's attacks with scary blighters. So you're actually getting a better chance to attack, without taking more casualties, kind of thing, right? So having the tough fighter with the extra attacks from this rule and then reducing how many you're taking is just, it's a really, really strong combo, right? So, yeah. What can you say? And you'll see as we talk with about some of these units, you'll see where those little advantages come from, which is it's fantastic with some of these units.
Yeah, there's certainly some combos you can make with rules that are applicable to certain units.
Yeah.
Individually, and then also, tag team it with this army rule, which, like the combo you just mentioned, which can be pretty brutal.
Yeah. And that's the Gurkhas, I believe, have.
Yeah.
The scary blighters. The next one, I think, is actually, it has its own little spotlight as well, is rapid fire. So again, regs and vets again. Okay. So it's essentially, it's the same thing as tough as boots, except for shooting.
And the only main difference is that this one only applies to rifle-armed models.
Correct.
So for every 3, just like the other one, every 3 models that you're shooting with this time, you get an additional dice, and it's 3 rifle-armed models. So if your sergeant has an SMG, you can't count him, or if you have an LMG, you can't count that guy.
Right.
So things to keep in mind. If you choose this one, you're going to want to go and really make sure you have at least 9 rifles. Maybe you leave your sergeant with the SMG. Maybe you take a sergeant with a rifle.
Yeah.
Because
you want to maximize. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this rule, like I'm actually thinking of trying this one out now. Taking the full man squad.
Yeah.
Doing exactly what you said there with your NCO. Give them a rifle. Yeah. I'm looking at this as, I think it would really be beneficial to regular early war forces, because when you look at the actual units, a lot of the early war units, their NCOs did not have SMGs.
No, it wasn't an option.
Exactly.
And additionally, too, it doesn't sound like a lot. Well, you get 1 for every 3, but that's 33%.
Yeah, though that's 3 extra shots at 24-inch range.
Yeah,
compared to 2 shots at no range, probably for the first 2, maybe 3 turns.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm starting to come around to kind of having more rifles than SMGs in my army. Anyway, I'm finding they're more useful. And honestly, a lot of times I take SMG on my sergeants is because it makes it easy for me to see who the sergeant is.
100%. It's like almost every German that I built, the NCOs have SMGs.
Yeah, right? And that's solely the reason. I think game-wise, probably just rifles is better, and this makes that even more so.
Yeah,
a pretty solid choice, especially compared to the first couple, which are really combat-based, close combat-based.
So
if your army if you didn't gear it for that, this could be a really great option.
For sure. Now, with this one too, one unit that I think really shines with this is the Chindits. So, hear me out.
Big time.
Chindits. So they can move and fire at no penalty.
Yeah, they have the American.
And it's not just rifles. That's the thing. It's not just rifles. So they're getting... This is great for the rifles anyways.
Yeah.
So move and fire. So they get the American thing, of course. So, full man strength. You get 3 extra shots. You move. You're firing. No penalty. That's awesome, right?
Big time.
So, this unit doing that, outflanking, coming on the board, you're not getting that penalty, and you're shooting as normal. Get yourself into some cover, get a target, just start peppering them, right?
Yeah.
So Chindits, I think, are that's pretty key for them right there. And just stick to rifles and an LMG, pretty much. So I like that one. Otherwise, early war, BEF, that kind of thing, that would work really well with that too. So I like it. I like that one. So I'll have to decide what I will do later on with the British Army. There's a lot of options, which is pretty cool. Next up, we have Vengeance. Now, this one's different. This one's definitely different compared to the others. It's probably my least favorite. But Reg Vet again. If you have 1 or more pins on you, you get to make a test when an enemy unit is within 12 inches of you. And this is before you do an order test. So you get the test to see if you remove 1 pin.
Yeah.
So, 4, 5, 6, you lose the pin. 1, 2, 3, pin stays. 50-50 chance.
I don't know if this is that great, honestly. Out of all the other ones, and it's probably the one I've seen the least. Although it could be a lifesaver. I can't tell you how many times I've seen 1 pin just tank, an entire attack, or it's happened a lot. So maybe I'm the goofball by not appreciating it. But it seems to me that the other ones are a bit better. This is maybe a bit more niche.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Circumstantial, right? So where that might, really benefit you is in a dire moment. Is when you have that 1 pin and you roll and you're successful and you're like, yes, okay, I don't have a chance of actually failing my order at this critical moment. But all the other turns that you have no pins on you, it's just kind of a waste. So that's how I look at it. I'd rather have something that would be effective all game long, right? Every turn, I should say. So rapid fire, if I'm in range first turn, perfect, right? If it keeps going, perfect. Stuff like that. I know the assault ones can, it'll take a few turns to get in there as well, but at least it's, I don't know, a bit more effective than this from in my eyes.
Yeah.
Call me out if you guys think I'm wrong, but it's
so what I am
personal
wrong
opinion.
There's only 5. I said 6 at the beginning. Like a fool, I said 6, but there's 5 of these rules.
There it is. I'm the fool for agreeing with you.
You just went along with it, Andy. You just trusted me.
I did. The expert.
Do your own research, folks.
So, but it's all good. We cover them there, so let us know what you guys think, which ones you use most, and maybe you come across some other combos. And again, this is just exactly, and this is just going from the main British book, right? We haven't even looked at theater selectors and all these other units, which we'll do down the road. So, but yeah, those are pretty much their Army rules, which they're one of the books that really has some good ones, to be quite frank, right? So
yeah,
gotta admit, and you see a lot, especially here, We have a lot of people who are playing Canadians or British. Just the two new players. The one guy's playing Canadians, right? So, which is pretty cool. I think almost everybody in our group probably has British or Canadians, but
I think so. I'm wondering if that's kind of true around the world. I wonder if you go to other countries, if you get a little bit of
if it's like that,
a little bit of national pride or whatever, or if people are like,
could be.
Americans play more American Army. I don't know.
Probably.
But that's certainly the case here anyway. And a lot of people I've heard are, it's my grandpa was there, or this is this and that. So,
yeah, I found with bolt action, it's, historical, and also a lot of times there's something else, a little bit of
an homage.
Yeah, something in the the background of the person, a family member or whatever the case may be, or a lot of guys who are in the military as well. They tend to gravitate to the game, which, it is great. It's awesome that they're playing it and they're doing that stuff. And I've heard some good stories about, guys doing this stuff. And I even heard one story, I think, John Russell had mentioned in our other podcast there, that one of the members had went and casted a miniature of a commander or something for his army, and it was one of those miniatures that he'd be able to pass down to his son, right, to play in his armies and stuff too. So pretty cool factor on that. But getting back to the army, so we'll jump into the units. Now, some of the units we won't really be going over because they're pretty much generic across the board in in every army. You might find some variances on them in each army, depending, they might have one or two special kind of little things, but majority of it is pretty much standard across the board. So that's kind of like your HQ units, in your army books, that is. So your officers, your observers, your medics, that kind of thing. Certain armies might have different ones, like the Soviets, like the Japanese. They have the commissars and all that stuff. So
nothing much special in the old HQ section for the British.
No. But I will say this, with a lot of these close combat, close quarters characteristics and stuff that you're allowed to pick through, sometimes, even though medics, you'll need 6s, to prevent some wounds and stuff, it might be interesting to throw one in to see how it does. Right? So.
Yeah. I've been, I'll be honest, I've been using medics. The last couple of lists I threw together, and they've always paid for themselves.
Nice.
Only exactly, though. They've paid for themselves almost exactly. A point or two above or below their cost. But it's not a lot. It's 4 or 5 models.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes those are the ones you kind of need.
Yeah.
So I gotta say, I'm not. I haven't played them enough to give it an official yay or nay. But I'm going off topic. This is really just generic. But maybe the medics are a thing. I don't know. It's you got a couple 30 points, and maybe just chuck them in and see. There you go. Rant over.
There you go. I haven't used the medic, so maybe it'll be time to start. We have with this, so going into the infantry section, again, you'll have kind of like the standard, inexperienced or veteran infantry squads. So one thing to note with the British, like I had mentioned before, early war infantry units, they tend to not have SMGs. So you can, check out the rapid fire thing, see if that works for you. Maybe not. As you start going to like mid and late, that's when you start getting the options for SMGs. So I believe some of the units are pretty much like the NCO, and then other units are like the NCO and one other member of the unit. So
yeah,
and of course, like anti-tank grenades, majority of the units have the access to it. So that's kind of them in a nutshell for just like the regular infantry units. Then you start going into some of the specialized ones. So I haven't seen this one on the board yet, and yeah, I don't know if it has really a place. It's kind of more of I guess it would be more of a historical kind of thing, or a what if. But the home guard section, right? They're inexperienced. They have access to shotguns and bars. They have the green rule. And they're one of those units that are kind of like, well, there's other units that have better options, right?
Yeah, it would be really just for doing a fun sea lion type scenario.
Yeah.
And again, this is one of the OG books. So some of these things have been hit with some follow-up supplements.
Yes.
Like this is a perfectly legal and fine choice, but honestly, in a standard army, probably not.
Yeah.
Not going to make the biscuit. And if you did want to do kind of a themed list or a themed game where you're playing Sea Lion out or some kind of fun scenario like that, probably you're going to want to check out the Sea Lion books. There's two of them. I can't remember what the heck they're called off the top of my head, but that's probably where you'll get more of the flavor out of that.
Could be a fun scenario too that you use them in, right?
Totally.
So there's and I do know with that unit, they pretty much are like unarmed, and then you actually start giving each miniature essentially the weapon, so you're paying per weapon in the sense, right? So yeah, it's definitely an overlooked unit, and again, just because of that historical or fluffy or special scenario you're doing kind of unit, which is totally fine, right? So
totally.
Now you do have some vet units that, again, the army tends to go towards regular vets, and you just kind of go take a look at selection, maybe what works for you. Now, these specialized ones that we're going to go through here, your veteran units for late war, they're equipped a bit better, right? Of course, late war, stuff is advanced, which is cool. A lot of guys tend to play late. I've noticed in our group as well. But they have access to 3 SMGs, 2 LMGs, of course, tank hunters. So, pretty good unit to work around. You have options. I think, did you use vets for your airborne, or were they specific?
Yeah, for my airborne, they're all vets.
They were, yeah.
And I used really for most of the games I played, closely resembled a theater selector. I used them I made it so it would work out of as a standard list.
Right.
but tried to emulate as far as possible the theater selector, and the theater selector said you weren't allowed to use regular. So,
okay, fair enough. That's the beauty of the game, is you can build an army, and it can fit within, a reinforced platoon, or you can make it work because you'll usually have extra models too, into a theater selector of your type, so you can switch, depending on your group's play style or what you're doing, or maybe you're playing special theater selectors or stuff with buddies, right? So
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you might lose some of the options out of a theater selector, but generally you can make something very similar.
Exactly. So, and with these guys, again, being that they have, you have the option of the 3 SMGs, I would be looking at tough fighters again with them, just for the extra attacks that you'd be able to get. It'd be very elite, be very expensive, I think, units, just because they are vets, especially if you're trying to go for like a full strength unit.
Yeah, well, and the thing with the airborne too is that you don't mind that they're elite, because also trying to emulate that, even though I made it off of a standard reinforced platoon, I emulated the theater selector as far as options that I had.
Right.
And no tanks except for the Tetrarch. No, the very limited artillery. And so really, I had nothing expensive to point my points into.
No,
except for the infantry. So without a 300-point tank, you're playing a 1,200-point game or something, 1,250. Yeah, I'm fine with those.
Well, there you go, right? Like you made a plan with your army and you built around that idea. So, and that's the thing with these national characteristics, is that's your idea, right? So you try to build around it, and looking at units and try to build around that, kind of use whatever units you can, muster or like, kind of thing. So, and even like the next unit is, again, they're a paratrooper section, and they got to be vets. So these guys are allowed to have up to 5 SMGs, 1 LMG. They do have stubborn.
Yeah.
Which is great. So, if they're essentially reduced to half and forced to make a morale check, disregard any pins on them, right? So
yeah, leadership 10 on any morale check.
Mm-hmm.
That's not impossible to fail, but it's a lot less likely.
Yeah, and like having the 5 SMGs, they are definitely close quarters. So, again, you have options of those close quarter characteristics. So, I mean, you guys can figure, what you prefer. But that's another option, right? These guys are going to be hard to dislodge. These guys are going to be pretty tough at being in cover and not breaking. They're going to stick around, and they're going to pepper you no matter what, especially if they're in close. And if not, they'll assault you, and they'll have some fun.
Totally. And to be fair, I thought this was the unit we were just talking about. So everything I just said, apply it to these guys.
Yeah, no,
I misunderstood where we were. But these guys are all about getting in close and just touching them, tickling them with bullets, and then with knives after. Just the good old bullet knife tickle. It's and I the thing about these airborne lists is they win on turn 5, because you're losing on turn 1, 2, 3, and 4, because you have nothing that can really hit from a range.
Yeah.
because if you built it right, you're probably taking a lot of SMGs. You don't have a lot of options as far as long range weapons, long range guns, long range artillery, and so you're coming in hot and heavy, and you're running and trying to get there, and they're shooting you the whole way. And hopefully, you're not losing a whole lot. You are veterans, but you're losing, and they're not. And then you hit. And then you're close enough. In turn 5, you've already, shot them. You've tickled them with the bullets. And, maybe at the end of maybe turn 4, you tickled them with the bullets. And turn 5, you go in and in for the assault. And that's where it's I am winning this game now. All of a sudden. This game I thought I was losing. I thought it was in the bag for the enemy. And yes, almost every game, I tell you.
Seen it a lot, especially with that army. Yeah.
Yeah, big time.
Which is cool. And you do see a lot of players playing, the paratroopers, airborne armies. So it's good to see. It's good to see the different style of armies that the guys are playing as, like, the airborne paratroopers. So that's great to see.
A British airborne army is so much different than an American airborne army. It's not even funny. You think they would be super similar, but they aren't. They don't play the same. I have both. They don't play out the same.
Fair enough.
Anyway, interesting.
Fair enough. Next time we'll have to try the Fallschirmjäger and see what happens there.
Let's do it. I got to build one. I have that'll be my third airborne army. So let's do it.
So next up is, I believe there's 3 more units there or so, and I think these three next units are definitely have combos, like some good abilities, right? So first off is the Chindits. They're vets, 2 SMGs, LMG. They have behind enemy lines, which is pretty good for when you're outflanking. You don't suffer the -1 on your order test. Okay.
Yeah.
So combo with that, just kind of like the Americans, is you take that unit at full strength, so you're getting that re-roll on your failed order test if you're outflanking. Okay. It's kind of, I think it's kind of a go-to now. I've seen it. I've talked about it. I've seen it in our community, and it's been more prevalent, the last few months, I guess. So that's pretty good for them. They do have, again, like I mentioned before, the fire maneuver, so no minus to hit when they're moving. It goes well with rapid fire, as I mentioned. Getting that extra shot, taking rifles, forget about the SMGs.
And that blends well with behind enemy lines too, because if you're popping in on an outflank, and you're moving onto the board, you don't have the -1 for shooting, and you get the extra shots.
Yeah.
Whammo, blammo, thank you, mammo.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Going full strength with that unit is like, 2 birds with 1 stone, right? You're 1, the reroll, 2, you're maximizing the amount of extra shots from rapid fire.
Pass the ammo, turn to jammo.
Right? So essentially, I think that's kind of the way to go with that unit, right?
Big time.
In my opinion.
And just flavorful. And the models are fairly old, but they look really cool. They're all pewter. I know some guys, I'm not anti-pewter by any means, but
some people,
there's certainly some downfall to it.
Yeah,
but their models are really, really flavorful. Like I don't know. I just like how they look. They look exhausted. And
They got like don't they have like the bayou hats kind of thing?
yeah, totally.
Right? Like in the jungle, like in the shit. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they look tough.
So, and I do think the Chindits are fairly used in probably some tournaments.
I'm sure they have to be.
Right.
I can't see them not being brutal. But that being said, I haven't ever seen them up close in person. I've never played a Chindit army.
Yeah, we haven't had it in our community, or at least I'm sure that there's somebody here, in the city and surrounding area that does have them. We just haven't had them come play out our community. But I have heard some guys and seen the empty slot on the pegs on the shelf of them missing. So somebody picked them up. But
somebody's buying them.
Good on them, right? So
mysterious cool. Chindit coming to Redcon and play us.
So they're pretty good. Good flavorful miniature for your hobby needs and some decent rules. So, commando section.
So switching from old models,
yes,
to new models,
yes.
These guys models. I know we're not talking about models, but I am for 12 seconds.
By all means,
they look amazing. I really like them.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all I got to say. It's a new box. I like it. It's
French kiss.
French kiss for the new models. I'm really digging the new plastics and how they go together and all the bits and the kit and how easy it is to convert them. And I like the slightly oversized guns.
Yeah.
They're a little out of scale. If you look at them, you'll be like, oh, the rifle looks a little bit big. Shut your pie hole. Your rifle's not going to break.
Yeah.
Your rifle isn't breaking every time you put it in the case.
Your LMG is not going to snap in half. Yeah.
Yeah. It is. They're so much better. And
I think they've realized that. So.
Yeah. Like I'd rather it not, like this is for wargaming. It's not a 1/32 scale diorama that I'm going to touch only when I'm building and then never touch again, except for on the shelf. This is for, the land of 1,000 touches. It's gaming. Yep.
You need a durable piece, right? So
I need it durable. Exactly. So anyway,
yep.
I diverged. I talked about the beautiful old models. Here's some beautiful new models, and I love the mix of heads. You can really do some fun stuff and a variety of units. Talking about the variety that you have in the book, you can really do some of these, and they don't necessarily have to be commandos either. Out of the commando box, if you know what I'm saying. But
fair enough. Yep.
There you go. Boom. Rules.
Yep. So yeah, this unit, again, 2 SMGs, 1 LMG, can have a Vickers LMG.
Yeah.
So I guess it gets an extra shot.
Yeah, the Vickers K gets an extra dice. Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty cool. This is another unit that has behind enemy lines, which makes total sense. They're commandos. And they already have tough fighters. So, really, whatever you equip them with, now they got tough fighters. So, with them, use of any of these close quarters, you're seeing a trend here with these last few units, right? Mm-hmm. Same kind of idea, but it really is nice. So the thing with this, I kind of have a couple of things with this unit. So because they already have tough fighters, it's a pretty good rule. Behind enemy lines, if you're going full strength, you're getting that combo again. So you can either, go with the toughest boots to get the extra attacks in combat, better chances with the tough fighter. So that's a big one, right? Or if you want to maybe try to make them effective kind of in both close quarters and shooting, you can always stick to rifles and go with the rapid fire, right?
Yeah.
So you're getting extra attacks for shooting. You're staying at 24-inch range, of course. And then when you need to go into combat, you have tough fighters. And don't forget, you are veterans, so you're sticking around. You can do some damage in close combat. Now, depending on what you want to, do, you can either really concentrate on the one and just be a beast in close combat, or spread it out a little bit and have fun with both shooting and combat, which I kind of like. So makes them a little bit more versatile in a sense, right? So
yeah, exactly. And if you're going for a flavor similar to what I was talking about with the airborne, commandos, they have a bit, but where the airborne is really restricted on, buddies they can take, as in big pals with, iron plates or steel plates on. These guys have some pretty fun options. Obviously, that's a later section, but I like the just pointing out again the diversity, and how so much different. Just the units we mentioned on these 2 pages, so much different you can make an army using these as the base, and following just the reinforced platoon, getting some inspiration from later in the book from some of the theater selectors, or even from other books. You could build something very competitive and flavorful using here. Splash or crash, that's what they used to say when you were asked whether or not, when they asked the original volunteers for whether or not they wanted to be accepted from their unit and moved into a new secret units they were working on. They were working on airborne, and they were working on commando units, building those up, and they would ask them if they wanted splash or crash. Splash, of course, being commandos, specializing in, coming in out of the dark, landing on a beach, hitting some kind of high-value target, and then cheesing off. Or airborne, dropping behind enemy lines. Pretty fun stuff anyway. Lots of fun stuff to read. And they actually have, diverging a little bit, but they have quite a bit of fluff in the book too. Not fluff, I mean historical.
Yeah.
I'm using like a GW term. They have lots of fluff, but they have some historical background to let you know what it is you're looking at. And of course, obviously there's more.
Oh, for sure. It's
lots of research and stuff you can, or just fun, interesting reading you can do. But
yeah.
Anyway,
and that's like the next unit, the Gurkha section. Again, vets. Again, 2 SMG, 1 LMG, and again, tough fighters. But this time they have scary blighters. Pretty much they're running in there with their, was it kukris?
Kukri, yeah.
Their knives, blades.
Those big, crazy curved blades.
Yeah. And they have, I think they have a war yell or something like that they would pretty much yell. Not going to say it because I'm going to butcher the actual phrase, but yeah, it's pretty neat. Scary blighters pretty much half the total number of attacks coming at them. So not only do they have the offensive ability of tough fighters, but they have that defensive ability as well, which makes them pretty
Brutal.
tough with other rules. Like, I think I seen these guys in action in our tank war battle. The players brought them and like literally held the objective just because of this rule. Right? Engaged twice in combat, devastated the units, wiped them out because of that rule.
So, yeah, these guys are no joke. And they're kind of part of the tournament meta.
Meta? Yeah.
The Gurkhas are quasi famous and obviously a well earned reputation in reality, and game wise probably a well earned reputation as being maybe a little bit crazy for what they can do on the board.
Yeah,
just super brutal.
Yeah, they I'd probably say they're probably one of the toughest units in the game.
Oh yeah, not even probably. They just straight up 100% are.
So, and some of the notes I have written down here, you're looking at, again, you can do the toughest boots, even the blood curdling charge with these guys, preventing your opponent from reacting at the shooting, reacting to you, and then you get in there and you half their attacks.
Yeah.
Forget about it.
Forget. Yeah.
Just done. So
totally.
Definitely an elite unit. And if you're at a tournament, you'll probably definitely see them. So keep an eye out for them. But it is cool that they do have these units out there. It's funny, I was thinking about this earlier today. That Japanese bamboo spear army that everybody probably has talked about over the years. I think this is the unit that can do it. That can deal with them. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
So it'd be a lot of rounds of combat, but I think this is the unit that can counter that in a sense. Would I want to see that battle? Not really. Would I want to play it?
It would be. It would be a pretty boring battle, actually. I think it would be 2 turns to get into combat, and then to get into combat, and then you would just stay there for a while, and then
essentially, yeah,
one or the other side would win. But honestly, those 2 lists are kind of famous in the meta of uber competitive.
Yeah. Hey, if you want to buy 120 pewter miniatures and carry them and get them all painted, and you want to play it, I hope you have it painted because it'll look awesome on the board. Props to you. Do it up, right? So,
yeah, fun.
Oh,
probably those 2 lists going at each other, though, I think would be pretty dull to watch. But, I'd
probably have a good chuckle, but yeah. Right on. So that is the infantry units. Next, you move on to like fixed teams and weapon teams kind of thing. So as per normal, you have units like MMGs, anti-tank rifles. They're pretty much the same as most other armies. You do have the Blacker Bombard anti-tank team.
Yep.
24-inch, one shot. It's the older rules, so it was HED6, which I believe is that the 2-inch?
I think that's the 2-inch. Yeah.
2-inch, yeah. So the one thing with this is it's not indirect. At least on the in the book, it doesn't say that it's indirect. So
no, you fire it right at the target.
So it's an interesting little unit. Has a probably a pen value of 2, I believe.
Yep.
So nice to move it around, fire it off, some light vehicles, maybe do some splash damage on some teams. So interesting unit. It's different. You don't really see this kind of unit, like infantry-based unit like this in a lot of armies. Soviets, you were saying, has something similar to it.
Yeah, I can't remember the name. It might even be the exact same one, but it's very similar. I can't remember the name.
Yeah. So, interesting unit. Nothing else really special about it. Just the fact that it's just like
basically like early war version of a fixed in place Piat. You know, it's just a little bit of a variance on an early war anti-tank team.
Gotcha.
You know, which is kind of nice in that sense that early war you don't have a lot of options.
No, you
anti-tank wise.
That you do not, which sometimes makes it pretty fun.
Yeah.
So
and then of course you move. Speaking of Piat,
that's the next one.
You move right into a Piat. So,
Jason, you use the Piats all the time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. They are very underrated by opponents.
Mm-hmm.
I find they don't take them very seriously because of their super small 12-inch range compared to other
24
anti-tank handheld weapons.
Yeah.
Not that good, but it kind of also like I say, they seem to overlook it. They kind of ignore it a little bit, and with my airborne, man, my Piat team cleaned house. Just like overall, an aggregate of all the games I played, they really did quite well. You know, I mean, you got to be pretty ballsy to use them because you got to get right up in the face.
Yeah, but saying that, like, one thing we've noticed is, and like we obviously we're not going to get to the tanks in this episode, but if you are running a lot of infantry, you have these options for those anti-tank support weapons, right? Like the stuff that we're going through here is very much the support to those infantry units to take out those hard targets, to throw some pins down, to even put smoke out, to do a little extra damage to lightly armed vehicles, or even just onto some units that are tough, like veterans. Like the Black Bombard has a pen value, so you're going to have an easier time doing damage to veterans. The Piat team, obviously, for vehicles, right? So it's nice that you have those options, because not a lot of armies do, right? If you're looking at the major armies, then majority of them, they will have some sort of option. But when it comes to like a Panzerschreck, Bazooka, Piat kind of option, not everybody has it, right? So
yeah.
So it's pretty cool. I like it that they are definitely used to support the units, and like they fit right in with the army too, like composition wise. So
yeah,
it's pretty good.
And I've had great success with them. I love them. I mean, there's lots of times where, you go through all the motions. You get up close and personal. You run up behind that tank that didn't quite, think of you as a threat, and you pull the trigger, and a little flag that says "bang" pops out.
Yeah,
and you do nothing, and then you just get shot to pieces. But there's been lots of times where they pop up and and cause the damage. And just fun wise, man, is it cinematic just having that happen. You pop out, they forgot you were kind of there, or didn't think you were a threat, or didn't think you were going to be close enough, and you pop out and you're right in the open and you're risking it, and you take that shot and it blows up their tank and it's, oh my god. Or it doesn't and they're like, oh ho, ho, ho. It's led to lots of fun moments anyway.
That's true.
Yeah.
Next up is, of course, regular sniper. So that's just as is, normal.
Kind of same old.
You do have the option of a flamethrower team, which is pretty cool.
Good old fashioned flamethrowers.
Yeah, make them veteran. They stick around for a while. So, of course, again, like we just talked about, support unit, but also really good for taking out vehicles as well, tanks especially.
Yeah. That automatic morale check
is deadly.
They have to take. Yeah, that can be, especially when you're throwing on those pins.
Yep, exactly. You can combination of that and other units, right?
I'm not going to lie. Usually what happens to me is that I whiff, or if I hit, I cause one pin, and they pass and then shoot me to death. But I digress.
I've been there. Yep, I've been there.
Again, though, very cinematic, flavorful, and exciting moment. Oh, is it going to hit? Is it not?
What is it? That scene on Pegasus Bridge there where they fire at the machine gun nest and they hit the ammo cache at the back and blow the whole bridge up.
Oh yeah,
so, yeah.
The whole bunker up there.
So, we got mortar team, which is normal.
Pretty but on a smoke. We talked about it before.
Yep.
I'm loving it.
Nice.
There you go. That's all. Random. We talked about it on another podcast, and we said, I think we're going to use this. I'm going to try out smoke, and we talked about the smoke rules. Yeah, I tried them. It's kind of fun, especially if you're rolling with, to tie it back into our topic today, if you're rolling with infantry where you're trying to get in the assault, smoke can be super valuable. I've used it to cover my advance while I'm running up, save my guys so that once I get in, I'm nice and fresh.
Yep.
It can be a big time thing. So mortars, launching your smoke, boom.
Nice.
There you go. This digression has been brought to you by smoke.
So that's kind of your small teams, or not small teams, your fixed teams and weapon teams in a nutshell there. A lot of options and some good options. So the nice thing is, I'm just going to quickly touch on this, is as you go through and there's theater selectors, you're going to see that some of these units tend to get used in these other specialized units. And sometimes you have like multiple of these teams in one unit, so keep an eye out for that too. I guess next up we have the field artillery and whatnot for the British Army. We'll go through that, and then we'll probably finish off at that for this episode. But essentially, you have your artillery. You'll have your normal, light, medium, and heavy artillery and whatnot. You do have the field artillery, I think it's the 25 pounder gun howitzer.
Yep. Yeah, 25 pounder. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a reg vet, which I noticed. So you can't take inexperience on it. Light howitzer, has a gun shield, but it has a 25 pounder shell.
25 pounder AT shell. So you can
Yes.
choose, you declare when you're shooting. And also important to note that when you're declaring an ambush, you have to declare with this weapon, you have to declare whether or not you've loaded AT shell or regular HE. So just FYI, you can't just willy-nilly it. You're supposed to.
Yeah. So it has a +4 on the pen value for it, which is pretty cool. So
yeah, it really makes it versatile, and for the cost of the one gun, maybe it doesn't eliminate a requirement for having an AT gun by itself, but maybe it does. Maybe you take the 25 pounder with the ability to fire anti-tank and supplement it with something like a Piat or one of the other options, and that might get you through and save your points off those AT guns. Yep,
exactly. So with the other weapons as well, like the anti-tank guns, pretty standard across the board. You have your 2 pounders, 6 pounders, so a light and a medium, and then you go to the 17 pounder, which is a super heavy, which is it's funny because they just skip. But they're pretty standard. They have the gun shield and stuff like that too. And then you end up going to the 3.7 inch QF AA gun.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a heavy anti-tank. It has flak, and it has an improvised roll. The one thing I noticed about this, it has a little bit of a downfall. So every time it shoots, it actually gains a pin marker on itself. And the whole idea was this weapon was actually not meant to be firing at infantry. And it's just a strain on the crew firing this weapon and like reloading and all that stuff. So I guess that's what that rule is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an option. Putting it in your army, maybe because it fits the theme of your army. Maybe it was the piece of equipment that was there, that they were using.
Yeah.
So straightforward on that. I'd probably just take a regular anti-tank gun myself, but cool. Anti-aircraft guns, 20 millimeter Pulster cannon, I think it is. It's like a automatic cannon with flak.
Yep.
The thing that's cool about this one is you can actually upgrade how many cannons you can put on this. So like pretty much up to 4.
Yeah.
So what is it? Like, is it 8 shots, I think? 8 shots,
Yeah, because they're
small blast.
They're autocannons. So
Yeah.
130
points for the whole thing. Has flak, troop killer.
Pretty brutal, honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably underutilized.
Oh, I don't doubt it. But it also is, where does it fit in your army, right? Like, we're looking at it more of like a tactical kind of like, okay, well, this is what this unit is. What can it do based on our ideas and stuff too, right? So,
yeah.
And then you have the 40 millimeter Bofors gun, the classic Bofors, heavy automatic gun. And really that's about it. So they don't have too much, but it's enough, right? They don't need a huge extensive range of stuff. And I'm sure in the descriptions they actually mention, the models and whatnot of the weapons that they've had during those times. So, but yeah, we'll pretty much, I think, ended at that for tonight. It's a good chunk. We'll definitely go into part 2, and we'll start going into the tanks and the vehicles, which that itself is a whole other deep dive.
Yeah, they got a fairly extensive tank list.
Yeah, they do.
Super fun. And I mean, I kind of related it before that this book is the base for most of the, the new supplements too. You just kind of, they add a unit or two and they throw in a selector, but most of it comes out of here.
Yep.
So this is really the core of that. So there's a whole new world. Don't you dare close your eyes, Andy.
Yeah. So ultimately, with what we've gone through today, I think between the Commandos and the Chindits, those are probably the 2 units I'm really liking. I especially want to try the rapid fire ability there. So do it. And I know, Jason, you have your favorites because you've played them so much since the beginning. But it's always it's always nice to evolve and also like try different things out, especially with that current army of yours, right? So pretty cool. So yeah, again, thanks for joining, Jason. It's always a pleasure and fun, and then I'm sure we'll jump on it again here in the next few weeks or so.
Excellent.
Yeah. And to all you listening, I hope you enjoyed it. Like always, chime in like always. Let us know what you think. Maybe some other ideas. Maybe combinations that you have come with, or even just armies that you have built based just off of history, or just ideas. If you have tournament armies that you like to share as well, those are welcome as well. So we have tons of different styles of players in the community, so everything's welcome. So again, share with us, build it, paint it, play it. Check out the socials, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Bye.